Hi there, you're back with a single malt review as we continue our sojourn through the annals of modern-day Glenglassaugh.
Yes,
now,
indeed.
we got off to a very good start last time with the quite excellent current version of the Revival. Now we move on quite fittingly with Evolution.
So we've revived, now we're going to evolve with the, yes, as you say, Evolution. Tennessee cask matured, 50%, no colour, no chill filtration. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I've had a wee look, and the casks themselves come from George Dickel, which must be one of the very, very few Tennessee whiskies which is not Jack Daniels.
Now I saw Tennessee whiskey and assumed Jack Daniels, but no.
Well, yeah, one sort of does. I mean, we have a precious little selection of American whiskies down here in New Zealand as it is, but George Dickel, I might have overlooked that and assumed it was bourbon if I did ever see it, but never mind. In terms of how the cask character differs, I have no idea. I think this is the first, at least named, Tennessee whiskey cask matured spirit that we've encountered, so we'll learn along the way, I guess.
It's going to be a contrast going from the sheer cacophony of casks which formed a Revival into a single cask type for the Evolution here.
So this is not peated or anything. This is just Glenglassaugh. It's just in a singular cask. Is it? Oh.
No fancy finishes, no combination of casks.
Yeah. So as the last one, the Revival, that was a matured in a mix of bourbon and red unspecified, we should say, red wine.
Then
Finished in sherry. This one has spent its whole life in the old Dickel casks, and so we should be seeing a pretty pure expression of the distillery's character in this, or so is my hope.
Research give any hints about the age, or we just assume?
No, we have no idea. So I think probably on par with the Revival. Obviously less than 10 because they're not quite there yet. I would say between 6 and 8 is a fairly fair bet. Because I think it would be silly to tip younger whiskey into something when you have that age range available, but we'll see.
Quite a light colour, fitting with the American whiskey casks.
Yeah, very, very light. And it's lighter almost than you might expect, and there could be a reason for that. Tennessee whiskey is not beholden to the same stringent regulations that bourbon is. They are allowed to reuse their casks or use used casks in the first place. So these may not necessarily be first fill ex-bourbon. These may have done a couple of runs of bourbon before they made it over there. So we might not be dealing with bourbon as we know it, because it doesn't have to abide by the same strictures.
Having said that, though, we've had first fill bourbon Scotch before, which has been sub 10 years old and probably a similar colour. So that's
it's a fairly narrow spectrum we're dealing with either way. Yeah. So 50%. That's pretty even on the nose. There's a pretty fair whack coming out at you from these ones.
There's some key lime pie. Ooh, fairly warm, but not overwhelmingly sharp spiritus quality.
It gives you a little warning if you put your nose too far in there. But otherwise, I think there's significantly less going on than there was in the Revival. It's more of a, as you would expect from it being in only one type of wood. It's more bourbon-oriented flavours, and this may just be me thinking of Tennessee whiskey priming my brain to think this, but there is to me, quite a charred oak quality coming through in the nose. Not peated.
I'm not getting
peat and char are very, very different things. But and it could just be my mind going on to the fact that Tennessee whiskey is
Pardon me.
Tennessee whiskey is filtered through charcoal, which is one of the ways it differs from bourbon. And I do think I get that oak char off the nose there. But
I'm not getting as much oak or vanilla as I would from a bourbon cask here, I think.
We'll delve further in and see what we've got.
Ooh, that is quite hot on the throat.
Yep, it's pretty robust.
Hints of black pepper, lemon and lime, and just oddly a slight kind of a note of tequila. I'm getting kind of like a fresh
sort of a herbal quality. Yeah, I'm having a lot of trouble with whiskey that strong, but there is. It's bourbon-esque, I'll say that much, but I think it's a bit pointless for me to continue on that road without giving it a wee bit of water.
Yeah, that's quite a... Ooh. Yep. There's some oak. Yeah, good. subtle oak finish.
What I can say, much, much, much drier than the Revival. That I can say confidently. With a bit of water. Fruitier nose, certainly, but that's to be expected.
That's opening up into, oh yeah, that's bit of a, it's a very full bourbon flavour without the strong syrupy vanilla and oak. There's plenty of
I'm not getting. I mean, I'm getting what I would expect. There is citrus in here. There is, for whatever reason, less vanilla and coconut than I would expect from bourbon casks. I still maintain my suspicion that these were twice used before they got to the distillery, but that is apropos of nothing in particular. I would have no way of checking that beyond ringing them up, I guess.
There's some very pleasant nuttiness. I mean, lots of almonds and a hint of walnut.
This one is very, very fresh compared to the Revival. I think this one might be a tad younger, and it certainly has less cask influence. I think that the Revival was being particularly, not propped up, but bolstered, certainly inflated by that 6 months sherry finishing. Which doesn't sound like a lot, and I don't think it's a lot either, but when you're dealing with young whiskey, 6-year-old whiskey, that's a not insignificant portion of its lifespan. So this one, without that, I think we're seeing more sort of clean, clear spirit coming through, and it's a much more refreshing, lighter-bodied style of spirit. But it doesn't have that oily weight that the Revival did. For whatever reason, that hasn't made it through on this one. So that's maybe not troubling, but it does mean that there was something special about that Revival that's not managed to raise its head here. So
I think we do have a much younger spirit, probably, and probably less active, maybe reused casks. That's at its full 50% bottling strength. It is quite a barrage against the senses. It's a lot of raw spirit, a lot of fire, a lot of heat. Whereas with water, that's mellowed out very quickly into a soft,
it's a nice,
grapefruity, almost a white wine character.
It's a nice. This one is a good light-bodied, far more light-bodied whiskey.
Yeah.
It's very, very fresh, quite fruity, quite not neutral in a bad way, but more neutral than the first one. More versatile. This one certainly. You could have an ice cube with this one on a hot day and you'd be away. But it doesn't have that force of character as the Evolution, and that's quite weird. It will be very interesting to see that last one, to see where exactly that was coming from, whether it was a cask characteristic or whether it was a spirit characteristic. I don't know if they modify their distilling practices for their different whiskies. As far as I know, they don't. They only make one type of whiskey, which is Glenglassaugh, and then they make Peated Glenglassaugh, and that's the two modes that they have. And we'll try the Peated Glenglassaugh next. But this one, it comes across as a perfectly pleasant but very, very different type of whiskey, and a less astonishing type of whiskey than the Revival. So this one for me, this is only going to be a 77. It's more of an easy drinking kind of a style of thing. It's perfectly good easy drinking, but that's as far as it goes in terms of really compelling me, getting me on board. What do you think?
For me, Evolution is an 84. Again, it's lower than the Revival, but it's still a really good showcase of a single type of cask. It's distinct. It's not just a bourbon cask, but slightly different. It's got its own things to say. It's got a particularly distinct character. It's surprising and confrontational at its full strength, easygoing and lightweight, but still enjoyable when it's been watered down slightly. So, very good, very clear, very consistent whiskey.
It's a nice one. It's just lacking that magic that the Revival had. So we'll try the Torfa next, and we'll see if that can bring it home and what it's necessarily got going on. In the meantime, stick around. We'll be right with you. Slanja.